When I was 25 and a half, I started a podcast. The goal? To review some of the newest and latest movies, along with some other stuff. With the help of my guests, I was able to do this, but there were dark forces tampering with my podcast, and with me. They called it an improvised podcast for some reason. I eventually found help in the form of myself. Yes, the me from a universe where the movies I reviewed got delayed. Apparently, my podcast made it to his universe. I know now that it is my duty, for the good of that universe, nay, the multiverse, to keep recapping and reviewing these movies, to hold listeners over until they could eventually see the movies as they were made in their world. For some reason, they come out differently in my world, but it's kind of entertaining that way. My name is Steven Schinder, and this is Delayed Replay. Hello, listeners. Welcome to another exciting episode of Delayed Replay. I'm your host, as always, Steven Schinder, and on this episode, we have an interesting, kind of confusing topic. It is the fourth Matrix movie that just came out, but joining me at this moment, you may have heard him before in season 1. He was on a couple episodes. It is Kiyan from various Decorative Vegetable podcasts. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, Steven. No complaints here. No complaints here. How are you? How have you been doing? I say as if we haven't been talking for the last half an hour.
Yeah, just leaving it to the imagination of the listeners, whatever we might have been talking about. But yeah, I've been relatively fine, I suppose. What have I even been watching recently? I've been rewatching Babylon 5, like my favorite sci-fi show, because it's on HBO Max, and that's been a lot of fun. Like I feel like I've enjoyed it more upon each rewatch, so that's always great.
Yeah, better than the opposite, at least, of watching something again and being like, well, this isn't so special after all, or something like that.
Yeah, or like where you watch something the first time and you're like, that was okay. And then the second time you're like, whoa, this is actually a lot better than I thought. And then the third time around, it's like even worse.
Yeah.
All right, now joining us at this moment, you've also heard him on this podcast a few times. He's also from Decorative Vegetable. It is Dylan Green. What is up?
Not much. Just dropping out of the void to interrupt and just insert myself into this podcast like the arrogant a-hole I am.
Isn't elegant a-hole an oxymoron?
Well, don't think about it too hard, okay? Just don't think about it too hard.
All right, that's fair. That's carnival.
Wow.
But yeah, we are talking about the fourth Matrix movie, which is oddly simply titled Matrix. Now, what do you think of this naming convention for this fourth one?
Now, I mean, this is actually, to reveal this, I guess, since it was such a big secret. Like this, we were talking about this a little before we started recording of like the trend of movies and reboots just naming the movie the same thing as the original. It's a very confusing trend. Definitely not not a good one, in my opinion. Right?
Like it gets confusing, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, I think Matrix though pulls it off with the A stylized as the 4. Like that makes it work, but
Yeah, you mean M4TRIX?
Yes.
Well,
I mean, I know people were like rolling their eyes about that because it reminded them of Fant 4 Stick or whatever it looked like it was called.
Well, it was, and this is not exclusive to the Matrix movies, but I'm not generally a fan of movies that just kind of shove the numbers into the words because, as someone who clearly never mispronounces words ever, I just never know how to pronounce that.
Lee Wannell.
Yeah. Look. Have we ever figured out how to actually say his name?
Yeah, it's. I linked it in the show notes of the anniversary episode. There's this YouTube video with clips of different interviews where they pronounce it as Lee Wannell. So
Damn it!
I was right.
Wow.
Damn it!
Oops.
Anyway, to my point, as someone who clearly never mispronounces anything, I never know how to how to correctly pronounce. I almost said I don't know how to mispronounce. I don't know how to correctly pronounce, like M4TRIX,
Revolutions, revelations.
That too. I mean, that doesn't help. Look, that doesn't help. Don't make your title something that can easily be confused for something else.
But Matrix is always, I don't know, maybe this is just my misremembrance of the first three, but it's always had those like little mind games, like not that it's a mind game, it's a very obvious thing to do, or a very obvious choice of a title, but Matrix has always played those sort of games, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I've never had the problem of like not knowing that it was Revolutions. But that's just
lucky
me.
you.
Yeah, lucky you, because I have that problem every
the
time.
only aspect in my life where I'm actually lucky. Great. Simply great. But yeah, like there are movie titles like that where like the Evil Dead remake, or I guess it's more of a reboot or whatever, it's just called Evil Dead instead of The Evil Dead. Or like even in film series where it's the same continuity, you'll have a movie where it's like The Fast and the Furious, and the later movie will just be called Fast and Furious. And like Final Destination, The Final Destination.
Hey, don't hate on the best movie franchise of all time, Fast and the Furious, okay?
Yeah, I mean,
Endgame had the biggest crossover. Lies. Have you seen Hobbs and Shaw, The Rock, and Jason Statham? Come on. Whoever thought you would get them in the same movie?
Have you seen Fast X when they encounter Transformers and there are also like some vehicles that look like Star Wars ships for some reason, and you see the DeLorean from Back to the Future?
Exactly what I'm saying. Most ambitious crossover was Avengers Endgame. Lies.
Oh my gosh. What's that line that Saw Gerrera says in Rogue One? Lies! Deception!
Yeah,
Every day more lies.
I quote that line all the time when someone lies to me. I go, lies, deception. Or what other lies have I been told by the Jedi Council?
I also think that the fourth Transformers movie, whatever it was called, missed out on not putting the number 4 right in the middle of the word Transformers and just calling it that.
Transformers.
Yeah, I think it was called Age of Extinction or something stupid like that. But
yeah, I don't know. I jumped off after the first one.
Oh yeah, that's probably generally considered the best one of the main series anyway. Like I thought the spin-off Bumblebee was refreshingly good. So.
I've watched parts of that actually for some reason, but I'm still a big fan of Transformers the movie, the 1980s one, the animated one with Unicron.
Yeah, I watched that one for the first time like last October or November or something. It was pretty good.
Yeah, back when Blockbuster and other video rental places used to be a thing, I was pretty into the original Transformers cartoon a little bit before my time, but I watched the VHS tapes on rental and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I was pretty into it, and that movie was one that I watched like a ton as a kid. So
nice.
Yeah, I use this website called Humble Bundle, and every once in a while they'll have like a book sale, like digital books, where you could get like 500 comics or whatever for like $25.
Nice.
Damn.
And I have like a ton of IDW Transformers comics like sitting in my library that I haven't read despite having them on there for the past like 6 years or whatever. But yeah, I'll get to those eventually, I'm sure. But Yeah, so what are your experiences with the Matrix franchise previously, like before seeing this fourth one?
Well, the masterpieces of cinema, clearly. Well, they're at least close, Revelations? Was it Revolutions? Revelations? I don't know.
It's Revelations.
Is it Revolutions? Is it
Yeah.
the unexpected one? Damn it. Kind of suffered from maybe somebody should have said no syndrome. But on the whole, they're pretty good, I think. Didn't really need a sequel, a fourth one. Didn't really know, going into this how that was going to work, but oh well.
Well, you might already know this, Stephen. I'm not sure, but I honestly love The Matrix. I mean, I'm not super into the Matrix fandom, or I'm not the biggest Matrix fan, but I've watched, all three movies, and now four. I've watched the original trilogy many times. The original Matrix actually was. I always remember it as being like the first R-rated movie I ever watched. Just watching it on TV when I was like, I don't remember how old I was, probably like 9 or 10, and I was just like, this is amazing. I love this. And then I watched Reloaded and Revolutions, years later, and loved those as well. I don't know. There's just something appealing about that about the Matrix and about the sort of like the zeitgeist of it. I don't know. I really like sort of movies and media and the sort of, I don't know if you'd call the Matrix cyberpunk, but like that sort of vibe that was in part, caused by the Matrix, sort of boom with it, right? Of like the late 90s, early 2000s cyberpunk aesthetic and vibe and stuff like that. So I just really love the Matrix. I've watched the Animatrix as well once all the way through, and that was obviously awesome.
Yeah, I think it is considered cyberpunk because when I think of cyberpunk, I think of like, it deals with maybe like cybernetic parts or like with software like going in a computer or something.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what cyberpunk is. Oh. Yeah, I think the first R-rated movie I ever watched was Terminator 3: Rise of the Machines, unless I'm forgetting something. Like I remember we had the DVD around somewhere and I just watched it and enjoyed it, but
Nice.
yeah. As far as the Matrix goes, like you have reviewed the trilogy on Triple Play, a movie trilogy podcast, as well as the Animatrix, right?
That we have, yeah. It was a very early episode of ours, and it's pretty rough.
My first experience with the Matrix was watching it on Gallifrey and Doctor Who, and no.
Yeah, right. Because they stole the idea from Doctor Who, right? I mean, we all know this, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, just like Doctor Who stole all their ideas from Chester Doctor, a Doctor Who podcast. Check that out.
It's an ancient meme we haven't referenced in a while.
Or rather, it's an ahead of the times meme that you haven't referenced enough yet.
The Wachowskis almost for sure did just rip the Matrix from Doctor Who, though, since the Matrix in Doctor Who is literally exactly the same thing as the Matrix in the Matrix, except like less cool.
Yeah, because it was made on a budget of like whipped cream and string.
Yeah,
whipped cream and string.
It's I mean, there's interviews out there where the Wachowskis are like, "Yeah, we're big fans of Doctor Who." So, I mean, yeah. Not that it's a bad thing. I mean, whatever.
It'd be funny if they didn't even watch it until after they finished making the Matrix movies. They're like, wow, that's a coincidence.
Didn't even watch Doctor Who until like 2018, and they were like, yeah, this is really similar.
Yeah, in like the Chris Chibi era, I think that would be.
Yeah. The Chris Chibi era.
Yeah, that was the first Chris Chibnall Whittaker season / Jodie Whittaker season.
Okay, so with the Matrix movies, I remember seeing parts of the first one back in, I think I might have told you this before, but back in 9th grade, it was the end of the school year, so we were like watching movies or whatever in certain classes. And so in the biology class that I was in, we were just watching The Matrix. And I don't remember us finishing the movie. I only remember bits and pieces of it at that time. And so I feel like I didn't really actually watch it for a long time. And so years later, like every once in a while, I would see that it's on Netflix along with the sequels, Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revolutions. And I'd be like, oh, I'll watch those like sometime soon. And then by the time I like am feeling up for it, I see that they've been taken off of Netflix. But I eventually like got to them last June. And so I watched the first one in full, and I also like some of the stuff in it looks pretty cool, but I also think it's kind of overrated. And then I watched Reloaded, and I thought that was slightly inferior. Like it has too much action sequences that overstay their welcome, in my opinion. And
I 100% agree with that.
yeah, and I think it may also suffer from like too much expository dialogue, and there's also that really weird rave scene that like comes out of nowhere. And then Revolutions. Oh, let me just pull up my post about like what I thought of Revolutions.
While you're doing that, I'll just say that for multiple rewatches and multiple years, I thought Revolutions was Revelations. Like I watched it through probably 3 times without realizing that it was actually Revolutions.
Yeah, I remember you and Dylan talked about that on Triple Play.
Yeah.
And like I saw that on Goodreads. There's like this listing for a book called Matrix Revelations, and it's like a fan's analysis of the movies or something. Came out like 2005, I think. But okay, so here are my thoughts about Revolutions. I might get roasted for this, but I think The Matrix Revolutions is my favorite of the trilogy. But I think there's not much of a gap in quality between them, and that they're all just fine. I definitely prefer the music of Revolutions. It's also kind of weird to think about how Revolutions preceded the release of The Return of the King by a month and was putting out kind of the same vibe. So, yeah, that like Revolutions ended up being my favorite of the trilogy. I guess because I like that whole epic final battle type of thing. And
I didn't say this.
Adventurous claim.
I didn't say this before, but I think they should have just ended at Reloaded. Just drop all the massive twists and then just never make any more.
Just end with Neo revealing that he can like control the machines in the quote real world unquote, and then just like it's never explained ever.
Exactly.
Just be like one of those TV shows that end on a cliffhanger with so many unanswered questions and they just cancel it.
Those are the best kind of TV shows because then all fan fiction becomes like beta canon basically. I mean, that's also a bold claim, but no one to prove me wrong, so
check out Twin Peaks. I guess my favorite quote from like the original Matrix trilogy is in Revolutions when like Mr. Anderson is like, "Why do you persist?" And then Neo is like, "Because I choose to." And it's like, I don't know, for some reason I just thought that was a very powerful line to hear and to have someone say, because it's like being able to choose to fight for what's right. It's just inspiring to me for some reason.
It's sort of been central, right, to the Matrix movies and to the sort of this sort of right. They're about this sort of computer simulation, the simulated world. So the free will versus what would you call it, like determinism or something.
Yeah, like after watching those movies, I finally listened to like the Triple Play episodes on them, and I was like really surprised when I found out later that that episode was made up of 2 different recordings stitched together.
Yeah, there were some behind the scenes mishaps, I'll say.
Yeah, it's detailed very well in a blog post on the Decorative Vegetable site.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually really impressive because I had no idea it was separate recordings.
Yeah, Dylan did actually a really good job with that. Actually. Yeah, but I mean, I can totally understand, I think, you being underwhelmed going into The Matrix, because people hype these movies up a lot. And when you actually watch the first one, it almost feels too straightforward for what it's made out to be, you know? Specifically one, I think obviously things get a bit more complicated in 2 and 3, but the original Matrix is a very straightforward movie.
And I didn't watch Animatrix until very recently, because it's on HBO Max, and I thought the animation style was cool. It's interesting that it kind of expands the lore of that world. There were moments here and there where the characters looked too still, like too static, and as if they're like not even really there. They're just cardboard cutouts, like, and while other people are talking, it's really weird. But I thought it was cool that like they experimented with different types of animation within this one thing. Like it kind of reminds me of Batman Gotham Knight, which would later go on to do a similar thing.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing you can do in sort of animation anthologies like that. Sort of the drastic switches in art style. Which one was your favorite? Which segment?
I think from just a visual perspective, because like I don't know if there's like a specific story that's my favorite, but visually I really dug the noir one, like the detective story. It's like I thought that one was really well drawn and like just well done overall.
Yeah, that one is my favorite too.
Dylan, do you have a favorite Animatrix short?
Oh my god, it's been so long since I watched those, man. Let me just Google Animatrix to remember what the actual shorts were.
Say it was the noir one. You'll be right if in that case.
Yeah.
I think it was the detective one, but you know, if you want to be sure, just go listen to our episode on it. But I think it was.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly can't remember if you guys said what your favorites were, but yeah, go ahead and check those out, listeners.
I think it was the detective one. I'm looking at like I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for the Animatrix with all of them on them, and I'm like, they're all ringing bells, and I do think the detective one was the one I liked the most. Damn, I should watch those again. It's been a long time since I've watched those.
Why not?
Didn't even watch them to prepare for the M4TRIX. That's how great of a podcaster I am.
The noir one. That one, if I remember correctly, was, helmed by the Cowboy Bebop creator. So, which is another series that I absolutely adore. So,
I've been slowly but surely making my way through Cowboy Bebop. It's like I've been watching it for like over a year now. Like every once in a while I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm still going through this show, and I'll like watch an episode and wait like a few weeks or a month and see the next one.
That's a show you can do that with though. Like other shows you can't, but it's like for that show it kind of works.
Like each time I watch an episode, it's like, yeah, this is really cool, but then I don't feel compelled to like marathon it like other shows. It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, before seeing all the Matrix movies, I knew the like, the limbo thing because of cultural osmosis, like bending backward and like the thing going over them. So like it definitely has made its mark on pop culture, but I guess it was this thing where it was probably overhyped too much for me. So when I finally got around to it, it was like that Seinfeld is unfunny trope. It's named as such because like sometimes people will see something in Seinfeld after like watching later sitcoms and they're like, oh, they're just doing the same old thing. But like Seinfeld is actually like a forerunner of using that type of joke or plot or whatever. So it's kind of like this thing that happens in reverse where like you're unimpressed with it because you've already seen like recent things do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I mean, heck, they invented bullet time for the Matrix, like that technique. So back then, of course, it was mind blowing. It's still mind blowing, but it's also just like
Yeah, I mean, I guess it kind of paved the way for interesting effects for later masterpieces such as clock stoppers.
I have no idea what that is.
Have you ever seen clock stoppers, Dylan?
No.
You need to watch it.
Do I? Do I?
Yes. It's this movie from 2002 where like this teenager finds this watch that like his scientist father is working on, and he can use it to like freeze time. And like it's like super cheesy. It has music by like Simple Plan, Blink 182, Smash Mouth, and like
Oh my god.
like I saw this in the theater once, like when I was a kid. I didn't watch it again until like I was donating blood like 3 years ago or something, and like I saw the DVD cover and it said "A Back to the Future for the Next Generation," which I thought was ironic because it really did not stand the test of time and become the Back to the Future-ish pop culture phenomenon they maybe hoped it would be.
Wow. Wow.
Oh, it's a Nickelodeon thing. Yeah, I looked it up right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth watching just for the lulz. I just remember there's like this dance sequence that even as a kid, I thought this doesn't make scientific sense. Really.
I'm looking at the soundtrack. It's like, yeah, Smash Mouth, Blink 182, Third Eye Blind, Nickelback.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Simple Plan. Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would classify that one as so bad it's good, like that type of thing.
Yeah, watch this now.
Yeah, I'll stop my watch so that we can freeze time and watch the whole movie and then come back.
That was amazing.
Great. Clock stoppers.
That was honestly the best movie.
I'm really glad that you enjoyed that movie. But you understand what I meant about the dance sequence not making sense, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you were spot on about that.
Yeah, but yeah, so definitely recommend Clock Stoppers to all you listeners if you haven't watched it. Just pause this podcast and then watch it and then come back.
Wow.
Okay, but yeah, so we finally get to Matrix, the fourth movie. I also thought it was a bold choice to like have Matrix and John Wick Chapter 4 released in the same day. Just cashing in on that Keanu Reeves hype, because like they already know lots of people love him, and like unsurprisingly, like both movies have been making bank. So
yeah, it's kind of hilarious also because like The Matrix is Warner Brothers and John Wick is Lionsgate, and they're just like going head to head,
Like, what are your overall thoughts of Keanu Reeves, like as an actor, like throughout his career, and I guess in this movie?
Love him. He's my favorite celebrity.
Nice. And that is
besides The Rock, I guess.
And that is your genuine, like that is actually you saying that. I didn't take sound bites of Dylan and like put them together so that it sounds like he's saying that. Like he's actually said that sentence.
He didn't audio deep fake it.
There is enough audio of me out there for someone to train like an audio AI that can just say whatever they want from my voice. They could probably make GPSs using my voice with the like sheer amount of recorded content I put out there.
Yeah, I remember there was an episode of Inevitable where you kind of touched upon that, and you're like, someone out there could take what I've said and just make it sound like I'm saying The Prisoner is a terrible show. And like when I heard that, I was like, oh, but you just said it. Like people don't even have to deep fake it now.
Yeah, except there's so much out there though that like it wouldn't even sound robotic. Like you would just be able to have it sound completely natural.
Right, like all the different emotions that are conveyed, like the different tones and whatnot.
Yeah. The rage.
Rage against the dying of the light.
I've personally never, thought he was a bad actor or anything. I mean, I know he sort of has this reputation for not being great, or he has the reputation among some people of, needing a really good director to be good in any way. But I've honestly never had a problem with him, especially in the original Matrix trilogy. I thought he was always pretty good. And that same thing holds true here. I think he's, I don't see any problem with him.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if maybe part of it is that people don't like seeing characters be stoic so much. also like did that in Constantine, and I mean in Constantine he was just really miscast. Like he doesn't seem like the character at all, like even remotely. But I do think like he was really fun in the Bill and Ted movies, and then in John Wick, it's like I actually believe like his emotions that he conveys in like the first movie, and like the action sequences and that and the sequels are really cool. And he seems like a nice guy. I also found him convincing when he played himself in this one romantic comedy that I forget the title of.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, he does have that reputation though of being like one of the nicest people in Hollywood. I've seen him make some mean/rude remarks in interviews though. Not gonna lie. There was one. It was last year, I think. It was. I don't remember when it was, but the interview. You might have seen this. The interviewer said that he played Bill. Or wait, does he? Now I'm getting confused. He plays Ted, right, in Bill and Ted.
Oh my gosh, I can't even remember which is which.
Nice.
Actually, I think he was Ted. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, he plays Ted. So the interviewer asked him a question and implied that he played Bill, and he just kind of, he laughed it off. But the interviewer then walked off in shame mid-interview, and he was just like, "Yeah, you better do that because you just ruined your whole career." And I was like, "Bro, like you could have consoled him, but you didn't."
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Like he wasn't even saying it in a joking manner.
He was laughing about it, but it's also like, man, I don't know. The interviewer obviously felt really bad about it, so, and it's like it was probably just a slip of the tongue too. So it's like, I don't know. It gave me a bad vibe just watching him not, because like I don't know. I kind of expected him, especially with his reputation for being a really nice guy. I almost expected him to just be like, it's cool, like it's fine, it's a mistake, happens to everyone, but he doesn't.
Right.
But whatever. I mean, meh.
Yeah. And the movie I was thinking of, I just looked it up. It was called Always Be My Maybe. It was pretty decent, I suppose. But apparently he's also played himself in some other movies for some reason.
Wow.
But yeah, actually in the third Bill and Ted movie, it was kind of weird watching him in that after seeing like the John Wick movies, because it's like when I see his much older self in that, it's like, yeah, that looks more like John Wick than Ted from the Bill and Ted movies. So
yeah, you're expecting him to start snapping people's necks at any given moment.
Yeah, but it ended up being my favorite of the Bill and Ted trilogy, surprisingly.
Nice. Yeah, I've heard it wasn't that good. Then again, I haven't watched any of the Bill and Ted movies, so what do I know?
Yeah, what do you know?
Pretty much nothing.
You just ruined your career by saying you know nothing.
Exactly. All of human knowledge is contained within Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, and Bill and Ted Face the Music. If you haven't watched those, you know literally nothing.
Speaking of John Wick, my friend Mr. Multiverse, who's been on this podcast a few times, he and I were talking recently, and like he says that like he was calling a movie that came out recently a Wick exploitation film, and basically I guess that's like what he classifies movies that are trying to ride on the John Wick hype. And I kind of do think that is kind of a genre now, maybe.
Yeah, it's interesting because, John Wick obviously actionifies, well, not really, but like it borrows from Cuarón, right? And like Children of Men and his sort of style of the long take and the shaky cam and all that.
Yeah.
So interesting though. But yeah, I mean, John Wick obviously was this sort of bigger phenomenon.
When I was watching this fourth Matrix movie, I found myself also finding a hard time trying to separate the different like characters of Keanu Reeves, because like in this movie he doesn't even shave off his facial hair to make it easier. It's just like how he usually looks. And
so much of it is like, wow, this could just be John Wick, because I mean Keanu just looks exactly as he does in the John Wick movies. Like I'm assuming that John Wick 4 also has that sort of same sensibility about it, where you're watching this and you're like, wow, this could be the Matrix. I'm sure they went for that.
Well, maybe
Yeah.
they're building to something like John Wick 5 into the Matrix or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Revealing that
The
they're the
most
same
ambitious
universe.
crossover event in history.
Just into the Spider-Verse, but with all of Keanu Reeves' characters.
Into the Keanu verse. Bill and Ted will show up. That random like single guy that he plays in Knock Knock will show up. I think that was the name of that movie, whichever one that was.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen John Wick Chapter 4 yet. Like I know lots of people are doing the thing where they're like, oh, let's watch both of these back to back. But I'm like, I don't have the time. I need a little bit of space between the movies, so maybe I'll watch it tomorrow or the day after or something. But yeah, that'll be talked about on this show. But for now, M4TRIX, it was weird because like at the end of Revolutions, Neo dies, right? So like how would you feel about the way that they brought him for this one?
I'm honestly okay with it. I mean, the Matrix is such not confusing, but sort of, what's the word? It's just sort of this, I don't know, mysterious world, right? Like the world of the Matrix has this sort of mystique to it. They're very upfront with what's going on and the conflict and what it's all about, but there are always these like little mysteries, strewn throughout it that like make you go like, wait, what? Or like, what just happened? Or for example, at the end of Reloaded, just the plot twists, just the revelations that come at you, just one right after the other, and it's just you're thrown into this mire of not knowing what's going on. So I'm okay. Like going into this, I was like, whatever, just story this has, whatever structure it has, whatever they kind of throw at me, I'm just going to accept it.
Right.
So when that kangaroo showed, like, that was people are already talking about it. Like when that kangaroo showed up, like I was totally fine with it.
Yeah, like when the advanced reviews came in and like the critics were talking about a kangaroo, like I remember I was scrolling and I saw the headline and I was like, wait, kangaroo? What is this even talking about? Is this a joke? And like obviously I didn't click it because I didn't want to get spoiled, but the kangaroo in this movie, it's just like I was trying to like figure out like what is this a metaphor for something? And so it looks very much like the kangaroo from Kangaroo Jack, like early 2000s CGI.
Yeah.
And so like I was like, is this trying to tell us that something isn't right? Because like the effects look very early 2000s, like they haven't progressed much. Like what's going on here,
Well, at first I thought they were doing some sort of weird Space Jam thing, where the machines were going to recruit famous cartoon characters to fight the humans in the Matrix. Unfortunately, that didn't happen.
That's a weird way of pronouncing fortunately.
Fortunately, Trix.
It did have that sort of like potential hint towards something greater about it. It almost reminded me of the guy in the dog suit in The Shining, which was obviously a cut subplot. There was a subplot about it in the book, but then it just shows up randomly in the movie, and you're like, what WTF is this? It almost had that same vibe about it, but it was cool. I liked it.
Yeah, that was bizarre. Last time that Dylan was here, Andres, like my other friend, was like talking about how The Shining there's like actually a shorter version of The Shining that was released in Europe. So like the American version, which is longer, is kind of like a director's cut in a way. So it's kind of weird that like there's some things that don't really make sense but are still kept in the movie. But I guess for the European version, like some things are cut out and maybe it's smoother possibly. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea.
And like they kind of gloss over how Neo is back. Like they're like these really cryptic remarks about how he got rebooted somehow. And it does kind of feel like an eye-rolly thing where it's like somehow Palpatine returned, that type of thing. But I guess at this point I was like, all right, I'll just roll with it, whatever. Like I was not expecting the like kangaroo pouch to actually be like an entrance to like another dimension, like a pocket universe, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that was like the first major revelation in this movie, I think.
Yeah, and I didn't want to bring this up, but since you bring it up, I will anyway. I wish they didn't use that word reboot in the movie, because whenever someone says reboot, I just think of the awful 90s CG animated reboot and just want a projectile vomit.
Reboot is actually an excellent series.
Oh my God.
Season 4 is garbage, but seasons 1, 2, and 3 have really great storytelling. Like I know that the animation is outdated, but the story is so good that I don't even care. Like, it's got a great story and great humor.
All right. Yeah, I just can't get over the look.
I have heard that the reboot of Reboot is garbage, though, the one that was on Netflix like a few years ago, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of that. I didn't watch any of it in full, but just I saw a little bit of it online.
But yeah, so when he gets into this pocket dimension, this is where he like sees the familiar faces from like the other movies. So obviously you have Trinity and Neo and the Merovingian. I don't remember how they pronounce it in the movie. Like they say it a couple different ways in this movie for some reason.
Yeah, I've never gotten a grasp of like how to say that name or that character's name,
Well, the Merovingian was a really curious choice to bring back. He was not anywhere in my top like 25 Matrix characters who I wanted to see in the sequel, but this is why I guess I didn't make this movie, besides all the other dumb ideas I have.
Yeah, and also Agent Johnson, and like it's this weird sequence where it's like, wait, are these who we think they are, or is this some sort of vision or like an analog of them or something? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, and I do like how the alternate, it's almost, the Wachowskis, I believe, back in the 90s talked about like simulacra and simulation, or I think it's by Baudrillard or something. The Matrix has definitely been discussed in relation to, the idea of the simulacrum. So in entering into this sort of kangaroo pouch pocket universe, this like matrix within a matrix, you can definitely see them going back to that sort of root.
Yeah, and so these familiar looking characters, they're pretty stoic, which makes Neo seem like more human by comparison. Like I know that sounds kind of mean, but like, just in general, Neo is kind of stoic sometimes, and that's just the character. But he goes through a wide range of emotions here when he's like yelling at them. It's like, tell me what you mean, because they keep saying all these cryptic remarks as if they're trying to tell him something, but it's like really confusing because they keep saying weird things like, there is rage in the garlic, and it's like, what's this supposed to mean? They say the light bulb is scaly, and and Neo is like, what does this even mean?
Yeah, and I mean that really opens the can of worms that this movie like really does deal with when it comes to Neo's character and when it comes to sort of Reeves's performance, which is rage. I mean, it's a total 180 really from how Neo was in the original trilogy, but you see like his inner rage come out throughout the course of the movie, and it's honestly really surprising and well done, I think, on Reeves's part.
Yeah, like it's very raw and very true. It's like he's in this room with them, and like obviously he's surrounded by a few familiar faces, but he feels alone because they don't feel like the same people.
Mm-hmm, definitely, and in sort of crafting the situation, I think the Matrix, I guess the Matrix 4. I just know it as call it the Matrix 4 or whatever.
M4TRIX.
Yeah, exactly. Like they avoid falling into the trap that like so many sequels and reboots tend to fall into, which is that like, all right, we need to recapture everything from the original. We need to redo everything from the original. And like most of the time you can't do that. You can't replicate the sort of context. Like the Matrix, you can't replicate the Matrix 1. Like, you just can't do it. Sequels don't do it and they don't try. But it's just like you'll never replicate that, like that time, that perfect time and that place and that movie for that movie to come out in. And it's just like having these sort of characters who are not right, who are like who are off a little bit, and you know that right from when they show up. Like they avoid that pitfall so well because they get to bring back the actors, they get to bring back the characters, yet they weave them into a story where like the sort of the offness you feel, or the like, that's not a word, but whatever, the feeling of like, wait, this isn't right, that you get with a lot of sequels is like fully contextualized in this movie, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason they didn't title this Matrix Replication, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, it does feel like like at this point you're thinking, oh wow, the original trilogy feels like its own story, and this feels like kind of its own thing. Like you could be dropped in the middle of it and be confused regardless of whether or not you saw the first 3 movies.
Yeah, exactly. And it brings new viewers and people who, you know, have watched the Matrix, or even Matrix like super fans who love the Matrix. Like everyone's on a level playing field here.
Neo, I keep wanting to say Keanu Reeves, but Neo like breaks down and he's like twitching on the ground almost as if he's being shocked, perhaps. Like he gets these visions, like he sees a vision of like someone live streaming on Twitch. Like he clearly see the Twitch logo.
Well, you know, it's obviously a deep reflection of where our society is as a whole right now, where you can just go online and get your instant endorphins from watching other people play video games instead of doing it yourself.
Or just talk. Those are even worse somehow, of like the random Twitch channels that's just someone talking.
Wait, those are a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are a thing, actually. That's the reason why the just chatting section exists on Twitch.
Probably shouldn't be.
Who wants to get online and just talk to people? Like, who does that?
Exactly.
Twitch,
I mean,
Twitch streamers. Neo. I don't know.
Podcast.
Wait, what? Who said that? I actually have this thing where like I can't enjoy mystery science theater because I feel removed from the thing that they're making fun of. Like I feel like I'm not really experiencing the movie they're watching, and the commentary they're making is just so unfunny to me. Because I feel like I need to be sitting next to them, making the jokes along with them for me to find it funny. It's like how I can't enjoy watching comedy specials on the screen anymore because I feel too removed. Whereas if I watch a comedy show or an improv show, like in the audience, like I'm surrounded by the vibe and the laughter, and like the joke comes across like it lands for me, and I find it actually funny, like watching it in person.
Roblox oof.wav. No, I mean, I don't disagree. I guess that's kind of why Twitch. I guess that's why Twitch even became a bigger thing, because, like, you know, with a Let's Play, you're kind of removed from the actual act of playing the video game. But with with a live stream, you can be there along with the streamer while they play.
Yeah, I suppose that's a fact of Twitch.
Yeah, which I guess, I mean, tell me what you thought, Steven. Like, this movie was replete with product placement. Obviously, the whole Twitch thing is like its own can of worms. It's like, all right, they weave that into the plot in a very unexpected way. But like, what did you think of just the random like blockbusters and borders in the background, like, you know, stores that don't exist anymore?
Yeah, at this point, like, so okay, so a couple different things with the Twitch thing. I was wondering, like, wait, are they gonna say this is like some thing like the Matrix Online or something? Like this movie takes place inside something like that. But when it showed the blockbuster and the borders, we see what they look like when they're full, and like they each contain customers, but these customers look like NPCs with no personality whatsoever to them. And then later on, like we see how they look when they are empty. And this made me think that this is a metaphor for how it's futile to try to recapture the magic of such a groundbreaking thing. People have to move on because, like, Blockbuster and Borders are, like, right now they're things of the past. Like, they're no longer there, but people get nostalgic for various different things and they want everything to come back. But that's not always necessarily a good thing. Like, nostalgia can be harmful, especially for cinema if done wrong. Like, you can easily make a revival or reboot or whatever that tries to rely too much on nostalgia, and it just ruins the immersion and the story for some.
Yeah, definitely. And like it's definitely interesting when you like look at this movie in like the span of the Wachowskis' career, or I guess just Lana, because the other one whose name I forgot didn't work on this one. But it's like, even once the sort of Hollywood sequel machine had already gotten its gears turning, like they were still trying to do original movies like pretty much the entire time. I mean, they had Speed Racer obviously in 2008, but then they came out with Cloud Atlas and Jupiter Ascending and just sort of really ambitious movies that weren't new, that weren't part of anything established. And now having to return to the Matrix, you can definitely kind of see where they're coming from with these ideas,
Yeah, Cloud Atlas might be a rare exception where I think the movie is better than the book. But yeah, Jupiter Ascending, I remember being underwhelmed by that one, but it's certainly something different. Like, it's not cashing in on something that's previously established. And Speed Racer, I've just never seen yet. Like, I've been aware of it for a long time, but just never watched it.
Mm-hmm. It might be unfair to call Speed Racer part of their I don't know, attempts at I don't know what you would call it, like new IPs or something like that. But like, even though Cloud Atlas obviously was based on a book, but it's like, yeah, Speed Racer, probably just nix that off the list because that's obviously a big franchise. Which I always forget. For some reason, I always, when someone says Speed Racer, I just think of the Wachowski movie. Like, I don't think of the long, like, 50-year history it had before that.
Yeah,
for whatever reason.
When I hear Speed Racer, I think of the Fairly Odd Parents parody of it and that TV movie Channel Chasers or whatever it's called. There was a monkey or something.
Yeah, there's a monkey, I think, in the original. I don't know.
Yeah.
The original show.
Right.
I don't know.
But
and don't forget Ninja Assassin, which they produced in 2009.
Wait, actually, maybe I have heard of this. Maybe let me look this up.
Yeah, directed by James McTeague.
Okay, I have heard of this because the screenplay was co-written by J. Michael Straczynski, who's the creator of Babylon 5, my favorite sci-fi show that I mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like I think in his memoir Becoming Superman, he said that he banged out the screenplay in just a really short amount of time. I don't remember if it was one night or one weekend or something, or a couple days during the week. But yeah, he like, I think he wrote it fairly quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've seen a little bit of the footage when like he was doing like a talk or presentation like a year and a half ago. But yeah, this might be one I need to see at some point. A lot of this podcast is me mentioning movies that I haven't seen but really should.
To touch back, I guess, on the Wachowskis' career, like a lot of their more recent movies, or like within the last decade, have flopped. So you can definitely kind of feel that, maybe a rage that mirrors Neo's rage of like, not wanting to return to the Matrix, yet everything they make flops, and it's like suddenly, when they do return to the Matrix, like it does well. It's a big deal again.
Yeah, and I think the whole theme of flops is no clearer than when Neo comes across a broken floppy disk on the ground. And that's another relic of the past, right? Like we don't really use floppy disks anymore. And
unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Aesthetics wise, right? Like they're
I mean, this floppy disk, when was the last time you saw a floppy disk, right?
just right now when I watched the movie.
I mean, okay, I'm okay. All right, okay. Smart guy over here. Smart guy over here. Before that, fool. Before that.
Was that not a non-rhetorical question? I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I guess in the trailer for the movie, because I do vaguely remember the floppy disk appeared in the trailer, like for a second.
It was like that split-second thing, like right before it ended. Just you knew it was going to be important, when they kind of did that. And lo and behold,
he finds it in a blockbuster. I mean, lo and behold,
they need to come back in style, just like vinyl.
Yes. Well, I have no love for vinyl, but I don't know. There's something cool, like aesthetically, I guess, about floppy disks.
I mean, I guess like it's got like that square shape, and it's like I don't know. It's it's like how in Star Wars, like the original Star Wars movie, they refer to the Death Star plans as like data tapes, and it's like because they said that they have to adhere to it in Rogue One, and it's like this thing that they carry, which I just love. So good.
Well, there's not much I love about Rogue One, so I just have to drop that whenever anyone mentions it.
That's ironic because there's a lot that I love about Rogue One. So reboot, Rogue One. What other R title do you not care for that I really love?
What other high art am I here to slander?
Well, like just something that starts with the letter R, like those two.
Well, okay, riddle me this, Steven. Did Blockbuster ever rent or sell blank floppies? Like, I don't, or is that just something they made up for the movie? Like, I don't know. Is that?
Yeah, I don't recall them doing so IRL, but because they rented out like movies and video games, which the video games would be discs or cartridges, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think they've ever rented out floppy disks. I could be wrong, and yeah, but it was an interesting contrast, like seeing that like in the Blockbuster, and because I feel like in the cultural zeitgeist, when you think of Blockbuster, you don't think, oh yeah, floppy disk on the floor there. That would be very natural to see there. Like I think generally people would think, that seems pretty off to have there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I also thought it was kind of unsettling that the covers of like all these movies that are on the shelves, like they're all just blank. They have no title.
Yeah, you're flung into this world, as Neo is, that's sort of just devoid of substance. Like it's all there, but there's something wrong about everything, no matter what it is.
Yeah, and when he starts thinking really hard about it, he like finds himself in the passenger seat of a car in the middle of traffic, but like the car is like driving itself somehow. And he's like wondering, what the hell does this mean? Which was literally my reaction when I saw that moment.
And at this point in the movie, I was just about ready to I don't know, do something extreme, gouge my eyes out or something like that. It's like one of my least favorite parts of the Matrix original trilogy of the movies is that like highway fight chase scene in Reloaded. It's because it drags on for so long, and it comes right after another big fight sequence. And here I thought we were almost in for the same thing, but thankfully they subverted that expectation. They dodged that bullet, so to speak, because it's the Matrix.
Too fast, too Matrix.
Too Trix.
I appreciated the realism of this guy running through digital world, escaping from people, shooting him with ray guns, you know. At least they look like ray guns, I'm not sure. Just really appreciated the realism of the moment, though.
Yes, the realism of being in a seemingly digital world.
Exactly.
Well, okay, so here's one thing about this highway scene that kind of baffled me. I don't know if it did the same to you, but what did you guys make of like the people on bikes on the highway? Like not, not the motorcycles, but the bicycles. That was, I mean, and they're keeping up with the cars. Like, I don't know. It was part of that sort of, vibe where it's like, something's off. Where it's like nobody could ride a bike that fast.
Yeah, I thought it was an odd choice, especially the fact that they set this sequence to the Queen song Bicycle.
Look, that's one of my favorite Queen songs, so I was sold on this entire scene. I get it's weird, the bikes are keeping up, but as soon as it kicked in with Queen's bicycle race, I was like, you know what? I don't even care because we got some banging music. The action sequence is like kind of banging, it's all right.
That's
bicycle. Oh, copyright. Never mind.
It gets silenced in the actual movie in theaters.
Really funny if you like rang a bike bell on your podcast and you just got a copyright infringement for the bike bell solo in that song.
Yeah, Warner Brothers or I guess whoever owns Queen's music would send it to cease and desist. Just cancel the whole podcast.
Yeah, just get sued for all you're worth. And you're a bicycle podcast. Like that's your topic.
What would be a good name for a bicycle podcast? What would the topics even be?
I haven't ridden a bike since I was like 6, so I don't know. That's not true. It was probably more like 9 or 10, but
Pedalcast.
Yeah, we talk about wheels. We talk about frames. We talk about mountain bikes versus road bikes. We talk about fixies. We talk about beach cruisers. Why do I know so much about bikes?
Sounds like a 5th podcast that Decorative Vegetable can make.
Decorative Vegetable Tower is growing.
Or maybe Podcast Aside can pretend that this bicycle podcast actually happened and they can review it. I don't know.
Yes, Podcast Aside. If we can tap into that alternate dimension again.
But okay, so this bicycle sequence is I thought it was another example of the movie subverting what one would expect, because like with these types of movies, action sequences, you expect motorcycles, right? But no, like they have bicycles and like they go up to Neo and they try picking up their own bicycles and hitting him with it, which I mean, I suppose bicycles really can be used as weapons.
I mean, this is the scene from this movie that's clearly going to be talked about for the next 3 decades. The bike fight is what I'm already seeing it being called online.
Yeah, and then Neo he finds a knife on the ground and he uses it to like flatten the tires. But then he realizes like, oh shoot, they can still swing the bicycles at me. It doesn't matter that the tires are flattened now.
Yeah, they're on bikes, they're using bikes as weapons. So there's still that element of it of like, just they're still useful. There's multiple different uses for the bikes.
It's almost bike propaganda, if we're being honest.
My favorite part of it, though, to be honest, maybe to be honest isn't the right phrase here, since it was pretty much the best part of the entire sequence was, when it's I don't even who was it? It was obviously Neo was fighting, but it's like, they're on the bikes. One of the bikes is going backwards. They're still on the highway, obviously. One of the bikes is going backwards. The other's going forwards. They're right next to each other. Neo is fighting that guy on the handlebars. I'm not a big fan of fight scenes. The Matrix has always had some of my favorites, though, and this one is no exception to that. And
yeah,
this was probably the best. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we have this bike gang, and we have like all the NPC type of characters we kind of mentioned, and like this movie has like a really stacked cast. Like there are lots of names. Some I can pronounce, some I cannot, so I won't try. But yeah, like it's really interesting how like you can ask someone if they want to be in a Matrix movie and they can do like very little or like a lot, and they'll just be like, yeah, Matrix, because it's so popular, and they'll just agree to be in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
A bullet flies by and like Neo turns around and realizes that he has an ally with him. And so he runs in the direction of the person who with the gun, and he's actually played by Neil Patrick Harris. And so Neo, they get to like a safe location, and Neo is like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "My name is Neo Patrick Harris."
Yeah, I didn't think they would go so meta with this movie, but I mean, I guess what else can you do when you're making the fourth damn Matrix movie, 20 years after the third one?
They have this brief moment where Neo's like, "Wait, my name is also Neo," and they're trying to figure out what it means, but yeah.
I liked it though. Some people said it's taken them sort of out of the experience, but for me, it really just it plunged me deeper, actually.
It put you into the world, you would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it dunked me into the tub full of water and apples. Like I felt immersed.
Mm-hmm.
No, but
Yeah.
I actually did think that this, like for me at least, it broke my immersion a little bit, but also I was like not sure what was even going on in the movie at this point, so I was just
kind of
dismissive
along
of
for
it,
the
I
ride
guess.
at this point, like.
Yeah, because like the name does not sound familiar at all to Neo, and like it makes me wonder, like, is he aware of Neil Patrick Harris, the celebrity? Like I guess not, because like it's probably the future. Like we don't really get much details about the setting, but like there's like all sorts of theories that people are like drawing up online. So it's like a really huge mystery, I guess.
Well, I did appreciate that at least inside the Matrix, they still think that the epitome of human development happened in 1994.
I mean, that's the year I was born, so they were right.
There you go. Checkmate. Checkmate, atheists.
Chess, your doctor. King me.
King me.
Connect 4.
I mean, yeah. I mean, in a way, that kind of like the Matrix 4. It's playing like 4D chess with its audience, and you're just sitting there like I just connected 4, like I win, and you're on a different playing field.
Because when they're playing chess.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like when the characters win at the end of a Jumanji movie or something.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Another movie with The Rock in it.
Isn't Jumanji also Warner Brothers? Is it not?
It's Sony.
Curses. Thought I was onto something for a second there.
Right. So they're continuing to try and figure out just what the hell is going on, much like the audience is still trying to figure out. They go through like this speech together where they're like, this thing that we're in, it's almost like a mosaic. Like all the pieces are there, but we can't really comprehend it,
Too close to the image, I think they say, to see it in full, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you're trapped on an island and, there are all these rocks in the sand and you don't realize that they're spelling out the word help unless you are high up in the air and you have a full view of what's down below.
Right. It just looks like, yeah, it's almost like that super, the like ultimate hubris of the palm tree shaped island in Dubai, right? Where it's like they made a palm tree shaped island, like the only people who can witness its shape and it's what it's, supposed to be are people in planes. It's like when you're on the ground, it doesn't look like anything special.
That's like when people make bank accounts to save money for their descendants to inherit. What fools.
Right, fools. Yeah, that's what I would call them, yeah.
But yeah, I think, like, I guess this movie could be considered avant-garde in the sense in that, like, every turn that it takes, it tries to buck the trend of being, like, as, I don't know, like, as comprehensible of a spectacle as people expect, I guess.
I mean, my biggest sort of takeaway from all the twists and turns, which frankly were like a pretty big departure from what the Matrix has done, because I mean, again, like we were kind of saying at the beginning, like The Matrix always had a sort of straightforward through line, even though it did get into sort of weird territory with 2 and 3. But like this one, I mean, at every turn, with all the twists, with all the sort of mind-blowing, elements that it kind of just throws at you, like every single step that it took was a step away from like, I don't know, something like the Hollywood sequel machine, right? Where it's like, this is the Matrix 4, right? It's the M4TRIX, but yet it does everything in its power not to be.
Yeah, I thought it was really clever when they find this kitchen, right? And like in the cabinet is Trix cereal. And and it's like, yeah, the word Trix is in Matrix, so like that is a clue about like where they are.
Right, and the whole set, we should mention, looks like the Oracle's kitchen. I mean, they don't ever explicitly, come out and say that, but like if you've watched The Matrix 1 enough, like,
Yeah, and they try to figure out like if there's like something, like some sort of clue in the cereal. And so they look in further in the cabinets and they find the Lucky Charms cereal, and they just combine that with the Trix, and all of a sudden like rainbow colors start glowing in the bowl once they pour the milk into it. And like, what do you guys think of this sequence, like how's going on?
I mean, the cinematographer really had a fun day on set, because The Matrix has always been green tinted, but then, once this happened, they were like, screw that, rainbow everywhere. Which I guess I appreciate. Kind of felt like I just dropped LSD in the middle of the movie. This is one of those movies that 10 years from now, people will be like, yeah, what's a great movie to watch while on drugs? M4TRIX. But other than that, I didn't really care for this scene. Just getting from A to B, I guess, jumping into the cereal portal. Didn't really need that.
Yeah, like the jumping into the cereal thing, it kind of meanders for a bit, and I remember thinking to myself, like this brought back memories to like when I was a kid, and I would see the commercials for a Snap, Crackle, and Pop cereal, and I legitimately thought that the characters lived in the cereal, and that's why they were popping, and I would just keep on eating the cereal, thinking that like they're just immortal, like it's like taking Eucharist and being like, yeah, they'll just live forever, like this doesn't hurt them.
Wow.
Stunned silence from Kiyan.
But it's like, it makes you wonder though, like, this is probably the first point in the movie where I was really wondering how many matrices deep they were, because obviously, like, when they first jump into the kangaroo pouch, you're like, okay, so they're in the Matrix within the Matrix, right? That's sort of, it's the simulacra. But it's like, this one, it really calls into question, like, is this the third Matrix deep? Or, because, like, the previous Matrixes all had one sort of tint to them, right? Like, obviously, the original Matrix is green, then the real world, the quote-unquote real world from the original trilogy is blue. But then, like, this layering, I guess, of colors once they jump into the cereal, like, you realize that the Matrix in the kangaroo pouch with the blockbuster and the highway sequence and all that did have those sort of multiple tints, and now they're just multiplying that. It's like you're just being, again, pushed deeper into a mire of just confusion and not knowing, and just there are multiple times more questions than answers here. I really enjoyed that.
It almost feels like there were all those fan theories that Zion was just another Matrix, that the Matrix Neo was in was just a Matrix within a Matrix, and then they were like, well, you know what? You want matrices within matrices? We'll give you matrices within matrices.
Yeah, this is the Matrix for like a world that has known Inception for 10 years, or like where something like Inception is old hat, so they kind of have to go further with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so they land on this, like they land on this island that seems to be made of like a piece of cereal, and like the ocean looks like chocolate milk for some reason, and so it is on this island where they encounter a character portrayed by Priyanka Chopra. I don't think they ever say her name, the name of her character in the movie, but she basically tells them, yeah, you guys are in too deep. You're doing this all wrong. And so, like, what were your guys' reaction to that revelation?
See, that was the executive at Warner Brothers getting the script on their desk and turning to the scriptwriter and be like, you're doing this all wrong. That was my interpretation.
Yeah, I do kind of get the vibe that this movie is basically them saying, yeah, Warner Brothers, we'll do whatever we want. We don't care. And they'll just let them do it because, like, people will, like, be up in arms if they don't get to do Matrix their way, how they intend to.
Yeah, I mean, like it or not, or agree with it or not, the Wachowskis, especially Lana more so, are sort of, in general perception and public perception or whatever, they're seen as sort of auteurs almost, Obviously, like, when you say that, it kind of implies, I don't know, something of like high art or something like that, but which they obviously are not. But it's like, although obviously as well, I should probably say that, the dichotomy high and low art is bogus in my correct opinion. But it's just like,
right, your correct opinion.
Yeah, I do think it's correct, or else I would change my opinion to what I did think was correct. But it's just like, where is it going? Right. So, like, I mean, they are sort of seen. They have that sort of thing about them, right? Where it's like they are seen as these auteurs.
Look, auteurs can be auteurs of bad things too. Look, Michael Bay is an auteur.
Yeah,
you heard it here first.
Right. Yeah, he is.
Oh my gosh, like, I do not want to agree with that.
But he is like, by the definition of auteur theory, Michael Bay is an auteur.
Yep. 100%.
So, like, auteurs don't have to make only good things, That was my point with that.
The Wachowskis have made only good things. We should probably say, like, this was just Lana.
Jupiter Ascending disagrees.
We're watching sort of some of their later movies for Dylan and I for our podcast Triple Play soon. So maybe I won't agree with that statement soon, but as of right now, I think, I would say that they've made only good things.
All the things you've seen have only been good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they made good things except when they didn't, type of thing.
They made good things except for the ones I didn't see, in which case those don't count.
I'll just say that the best live action Transformers movie and the best Bad Boys movie are the ones where Michael Bay wasn't involved.
Look, Michael Bay did a lot more than just Transformers and Bad Boys, okay?
Yeah, he did
Armageddon, Pearl Harbor, come on.
I mean, I did kind of like Armageddon. I'll give him that, but yeah, I don't think I've seen Pearl Harbor, so I don't know.
Pretty sure Pearl Harbor like won an Oscar for something. Yeah, sound editing.
Yeah, woohoo!
Wow,
checkmate.
Wow, Pearl Harbor was the first worst picture, at the Golden Raspberry Awards. The first worst picture nominated film to win an Academy Award.
Yeah, it's really surprising that Battleship was not made by Michael Bay, because it has like all the things that people hate that would expect from like a Michael Bay movie.
See, but the fact that you can pinpoint like what a Michael Bay style is just proves that he's an auteur.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we wouldn't like the fact that we're even having this discussion just proves it. Like, if
what have I done?
Like, we wouldn't even be talking about we wouldn't even be talking about Michael Bay if anyone could make a Michael Bay movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Moving on.
Like, the quality is a different question, but yeah.
Steven's like, no, it's not an auteur, and we're moving on.
This is Matrix, not Michael Bay Trix.
Look, this is a controversial opinion, but I'd love to see Michael Bay make Matrix 5. There, I said it. Look,
oh my gosh.
Look, after the ending of this movie opened up all those possibilities for where they could go next, with spin-offs and, a whole franchise, I want to see Michael Bay take a shot at Matrix 5.
I honestly hate, like, now that you bring that up, I can't stop myself from talking about it now. I hated that. I hated how this movie was, in many ways, an excuse for Matrix Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, it's weird because you go through this whole movie being like, yeah, this isn't going to be a replication of the Matrix. It's going to be its own thing. And then at the end of it, it's like this very cynical thing where it's like, yeah, we're probably going to make more. We're probably going to make Matrix 5 after this, deal with it. And it's like, it's almost like they're going along with it because they feel like society pressures that the filmmakers into doing these things when really they just want to like not do it. It's I don't know, like how did you guys feel about how the ending played out?
Look, I hate sequel baiting as much as the next guy, okay? Look, I hate sequel baiting, okay? Look, Kiyan will know this. I hate sequel baiting. And so I didn't like it here either, but I still want to see Michael Bay tackle Matrix 5, just saying.
I don't.
Yeah, maybe if that ends up being the case, it'll all have been worth it.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, for Neo to like, look, when Neo like got that vision of like all the other matrices in like the parallel timelines, that was just, it was pretty cool. Like it was a pretty cool scene. Visuals are on point, but yeah,
there's so many explosions.
The sequel bait was like just so obvious.
Yeah, like he basically turns to like the other characters and is like, we can go anywhere now. And
and his eyes go like full white and he goes, I can control everything. You know. Is Neo gonna become the villain in the future? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I would say the lack of color, you know, the colorlessness of that. I mean, it's not only his eyes, it's like Matrix like totally discards the color theming at that point. You know, it's devoid of color. It's devoid of substance. You know, no matter how many matrices deep they are, matrices, whatever. Yeah, I would say there's definitely potential for Neo to not be, you know, the sort of character we thought he was in the future.
I mean, it's definitely possible. I feel like, I mean, there's that moment earlier in the movie that may be subtle foreshadowing that he's going bad, which is when he finds a birthday cake and then he gets like a whole bottle of mustard and just squirts the whole thing over it and then just eats it without wincing. So it's like, what is this version of Neo even? Like, what has he become? Where is he going to go from here?
And you see, if he's capable of this, he's capable of really anything. That's sort of the gist of that scene, or it was, in my opinion.
The one thing I didn't like about that scene was how they still didn't even confirm if this is the same Neo from the first 3 movies or if it's like a new incarnation of Neo. Like, what's going on there?
Well, hopefully sometime we'll know what the author's intentions are, because that's what cements what the thing is.
Right.
But yeah, I'm really curious to see like where he could go. But I also like hate myself for being curious about it for some reason, because like you said, I also hate sequel baiting and franchises where I feel like they don't really need to continue going further.
Yeah, I'm not going to watch Matrix 5, the inevitable Matrix 5.
Check out Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast.
Listen to that instead of watching The Matrix 5.
Listen to that instead of watching Lex.
Also true.
The Matrix.
Oh my god!
Yeah, that was awful to say.
Can you imagine a Lex Matrix crossover? That might just be the worst conceived idea this side of the Milky Way.
Oh yes, the Milky Way candy bar. That would be the worst.
Yeah, the one sitting on my table right over there is actually what I was referring to.
Right. So this movie also falls into like the sin of Matrix Reloaded, and that like the rock music and the end credits, it just feels really out of place after all this stuff that's supposed to be thought-provoking, and then just like that rock music just crashes down. Like I don't know about you guys, but I thought that was a bit much.
I never liked that from any of the Matrix movies, and I continue to not like it here.
I believe you.
Yeah, I don't really, care for vocal or licensed songs placed in any movie,
I mean,
which
I'm
I guess is
okay.
a really broad statement, but it's true. And the Matrix typically doesn't put them in the movies themselves, but yeah, when those credits hit, it's just another story entirely.
I mean, I'm fine with vocal music in movies and TV shows. It just depends on like which ones and how they are used, in my opinion.
It does depend on the context. Usually I find them out of place and not enjoyable, but yeah, you're right.
All-Star fits so well with the beginning of Shrek. Like, I can't imagine it without that vocal music.
I'm gonna go and re-edit the beginning of Shrek now to use.
Some other Smash Mouth song.
It's
No, I was
just-
gonna
it's
say
just him,
Fat
like,
Bottom
bathing
Girls
without
by,
the music.
by Queen.
Which song?
The Fat Bottom Girls by Queen.
Oh my gosh.
The companion
believe-
song to Bicycle Race. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I can't believe the word somebody has been completely cursed by that song. Like, whenever someone
I
says,
think you
just
mean
says somebody.
Somebody.
Yeah.
You know, the worst
I
part of
do.
that is that actually, this is, I can't believe I just came onto this podcast to just drop controversial opinions and leave. But Smash Mouth's other music is not bad. Look, Smash Mouth is actually pretty good. I'm going to say it.
Check out Smash
problem-
Mouth's music in that movie Clock Stoppers.
Yeah.
Also, in my opinion, every Shrek movie and the musical are good.
All right, you're kicked off the podcast, Stephen.
Kicked off your own
my
podcast.
own
podcast. We're taking over.
It just gets absorbed into Decorative Vegetable.
Get into the Decorative Vegetable super conglomerate.
You became the very thing that you swore to destroy.
Yeah, we became the podcasting empire we swore to not become because it would burn us out.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes. But yeah, unless we have any other thoughts on Matrix, I guess we could go into final thoughts and score out of 10.
No, I don't think I have anything else except for final thoughts.
So
Yeah, I don't have anything either. Yeah.
all right, so Kiyan, what we've been doing since this season started is whenever we do score out of 10, we say a unit of measurement. So each person can choose something different. So it can be something related to the movie. So like, for example, if you were to rate Nacho Libre, it'd be like, 7 out of 10 nachos or something.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Sure.
yeah.
7
Alright.
Jack Black in a robe or whatever cape out of a 10. Yeah. I got you.
All right, so Kiyan, what are your final thoughts and score out of 10 for Matrix?
Well, it's like, like I said at the beginning, I was prepared going into this movie. I was prepared to just be like, whatever this thing throws at me, I'm just going to accept it. And because I said that, I ended up enjoying it a lot. I probably actually, maybe wasn't as critical about it as I perhaps should have been or something like that. But yeah, I mean, overall, I would probably just give it like, since I enjoyed it so much, 10, I don't know, layers of the Matrix deep out of 10. I would just say it's the best, or the highest possible rating I could give it.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, what about you, Dylan?
Yeah, I think I'm in a similar boat, but I don't think I would go, that high on the scale. I was kind of just along for the ride. Enjoyed it, had a good time, So I'd probably give it 8 colors of the rainbow out of 10 colors of the rainbow in the weird final Matrix level.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because I saw this one more recently and find it more memorable, but I found myself more engaged with what was going on in this movie than in the original 3. And I kind of appreciated that it was trying to do its own thing, but also it, like the sequel bait at the end was a real cop-out, in my opinion. I do like it more than the other Matrix movies. So I'm going to give this 7.5 out of 10 floppy disks.
I mean, speaking of floppy disks, I hope that you help bring floppy disks back by pressing this podcast episode into floppy disks and mailing it to all your subscribers.
I mean, Decorative Vegetable needs to put all their episodes on discs because, like, DVD is Decorative Vegetable discs.
Yeah.
Yeah, limited edition. The first person to donate to our Patreon will get limited edition. 500
Merch.
discs, 500 disc set of every Decorative Vegetable episode ever pressed onto DVD.
Just get Big Finish to design those colorful covers.
Yes, for the dozens of them we'll have to have for the amount of audio we've recorded.
Well, look, I'll be first in online line for the delayed replay merch store. So whenever that's set up, just let me know.
Yeah, send it our way when it's up. Notice we're saying when and not if.
Balls in your court.
Joke's on you, pal. I don't play sports.
I was trying to think of a funny response to that, but I can't, so oh well.
Well, we got an email this week, surprisingly. So this is, well, I'll just go ahead and read it. Dear Prime Steven, I am a listener from the Alpha universe, an alternate universe of me starred on a season 2 episode. I just listened to episode 17 of the podcast. I heard that you did a minute of the first episode with someone else. Are you likely to ever release the audio, or has it been wiped like all those Doctor Who episodes? I hope you read this email out on the podcast. I am a massive fan of it. Kind regards, Alpha Oliver Titcom. Sent from my iPhone.
Thanks for reading the sent from my iPhone. Really wasn't sure.
Sent from my washing machine.
Sent from my Samsung smart refrigerator.
Yeah, my dad likes to end his with sent from my magical mobile device.
The alliteration. I love it.
But yeah, so for those who've been listening to season 2, on the episode covering the M. Night Shyamalan movie Old, my friend Oliver guested on that one. And so I guess this is a version of him from that universe where those movies got delayed.
Yeah, I completely forgot the universe designations.
I mean, so did I. I'm not even sure if we settled on which one was Alpha, which one was Prime or Delta or Beta or whatever, but yeah.
We mentioned there was also a Universe A, I think, in the anniversary episode.
Yeah, or Universe B.
Universe B, that's right. It was B because I didn't want things to be simple, I guess.
Yeah, but yeah, so he's asking, because on the anniversary episode, there's a part where I mentioned that, when I was trying to record the first episode of this podcast, I actually did it with my roommate at the time. We were talking about A Quiet Place Part 2, and it was before I really knew how to structure the conversation. And then we talked for half an hour or something, maybe less, I don't know. And then I checked the Audacity, and it turns out it stopped recording after a minute or something from the looks of it.
It's okay. We've definitely experienced that before at Decorative Vegetable Towers.
Or with the Matrix, where you thought it was only a minute, but then you checked later and it turns out you had an hour.
We had the whole episode, in fact, but we didn't realize that till after we had recorded a second version of the same episode, so that was great.
And you spliced them together.
Good times.
Yeah, I mean, that must have been a lot of work. Imagine
Not
if
for me.
Keon's hey.
Like imagine if Dylan showed up like midway through this episode and I ended up having to like splice in the stuff he said like earlier in the conversation.
Yeah, imagine if there was a timeline where that happened. Man, wouldn't that suck? Huh.
Right. But as for whether I'll ever release the audio of that, I don't know if I even have the audio. Like I honestly may have deleted it. And I mean, like I said, it was before I like knew how to structure the thing, and then I tried again with my friend Andres, and my roommate was cool with it. And yeah, so like I don't know if maybe I mean my computer's pretty cluttered, so for all I know it could be like somewhere on there, or like there was also that weird thing going on in season 1 where those interdimensional beings called the can of worms are like messing with stuff. So for all I know, maybe they've tinkered with it a bit, so it might sound weird if I ever do find it. But yeah, I don't know. Or maybe it's wiped, like all those Doctor Who episodes in all likelihood.
Missing
Yeah, it'll
episodes of delayed replay.
Found like in an airport somewhere, like in 25 years.
Yeah,
Someone
like
will just have it.
someone has it on a floppy disk.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So like no promises, but I mean that would be funny if it ever did get found and it wasn't like it'd be funny if it was just like only my side of the conversation to play into like the quiet place theme of it, or maybe neither of us are audible on it for some reason. I don't know. But yeah, thanks for sending in the email, Oliver. That rarely happens. Like it's refreshing to have an email that's from someone who's not an alternate version of myself. No offense to myself.
I was going to say no offense to yourself.
I thought you meant like no offense to everyone who's not an alternate version of you, because they don't get to be you.
I mean, I would not wish. I would not like wish anyone to be me. Like,
Yeah,
because you've already got
I
to
doing
do
all
that.
yourself, huh?
Yeah, selfish. Want to keep it.
Yeah, no, I don't want anyone to go to endure any of that. But anyway, all right. Well, I guess that'll do it. So thanks again for being on this podcast. Where can people find your stuff?
Nowhere. We don't exist.
They can check it out on one of those like unsolicited podcast sites that we're on that didn't ask our permission to put our stuff on.
Yeah, if you just Google like Trust Your Doctor, it'll come up with like Spotify, Google Play, and then like Feed Catcher or like
Yeah, there's like
Podfeed, and it's
weird
like,
ones
what
like
is this?
like backtracks and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you go on those sites and you're like, well, I have followers. People are listening to this stuff here. That's not even on my radar. Like, you know,
So there's like 2 listeners, and you're like, who are you people using Podfeed to listen to podcasts? Like,
Yeah, like I distribute delayed replay through Anchor, and they distribute to several different places. But even like with those in mind, there's still a few other places I've seen where like they just randomly take the podcast and distribute them like on there.
yeah, just I don't know what's going on there, but if you really want to find us, just go to decorativevegetable.com. It's there's links to all of our shows on all of the podcasting platforms that I've submitted them to on there.
yeah, and we do Trust Your Doctor, a Doctor Who podcast, Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast. So those are big ones. We've done Zenith, a Blake 7 podcast. That one's done. And then we have Triple Play, a movie trilogy podcast, which is sort of the black sheep of the series, I guess.
Being mentioned lost.
Mm-hmm. And despite the fact that we made it second.
Well, it's kind of funny because Triple Play was the first podcast of yours that I ever listened to.
Triple Play was also, we haven't said this on recording in a long time. Triple Play, we actually had the idea for that first.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow!
But then we thought it like wouldn't work, So we did Trust Your Doctor, and then we were like, maybe it will work actually. And you know what? You know what? We were right the first time actually.
Yeah. Well, the initial concept of it was a blog because it was in like 2012, so people actually still did blogs, kind of.
Yeah.
And then like once 2015 hit, we were like, okay, it's a podcast now.
Yeah, I didn't jump on the Trust Your Doctor train right away because it, like, I had seen the whole show like relatively recently. Like I finished it like at the end of 2013, and I was like, yeah, I don't really need to listen to discussions about each of those episodes right away. But then over a year ago, I discovered what I was missing.
It's kind of like beer, you know. Everyone's like, beer's an acquired taste. Well,
Beer sucks.
There,
There,
look,
I said
agree.
it.
Look, no, I agree. That's not a controversial opinion for the company you're in. I hate beer, um, but a lot of people say like beer is an acquired taste, and it just kind of wears you down. You know, that's like Trust Your Doctor. It just wears you down, and then you like it. And you're like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, then you're 300 episodes in, and you're like, wow, I have Stockholm syndrome. I'm here, like I'm not leaving.
You're 300 episodes in, you're like, you're right. Tagano was the like best villain Doctor Who has ever had.
Yeah.
It's that meme, you know, with the iceberg that's got like different levels of fandom, and it's like the top level is like, man, Kiyan and Dylan, you know, they're like kind of entertaining, and the bottom level of the iceberg is like, yeah, you know, Doctor Who stole all their ideas from Trust Your Doctor in the future. Tagano was the best Doctor Who villain that's ever been on the show.
Maybe Lex is an acquired taste.
I hope not.
Like, I'm really hoping that 790 dies in the 791 episode that I haven't seen yet, but I really doubt it.
He doesn't. As far as I know, he doesn't.
But yeah, so thanks again. And people can find me at Steven Shinder on Instagram and Twitter, Steven Shinder Storytelling on Facebook. You can find my fantasy horror comedy novel, Lemons and Like Rain, on Amazon, also on stevenshinder.com. You can find Star Trek Culture on the playlist section on the Culture Slate YouTube channel. Me and my dad have been working on a podcast called Yes Shit, where we talk about the progressive rock band Yes. And so that's fun. Keep an eye out for that. And if you want to email Delayed Replay, email delayedreplaypodcast@gmail.com. And you might have your thoughts read on the show, perhaps. Even if you like comment on social media or something, you can have your thoughts read on the show. And yeah, I guess that'll do it. And the next episode after this one will be about John Wick Chapter 4. What a trajectory, like going from the anniversary episode to Spy Jam to Matrix and then John Wick Chapter 4. It's wild.
Look, starting off year 2, right.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say thanks for inviting me on. I'm not going to speak for Kiyan. I assume he's going to thank you, but thanks for inviting me on. It was good fun.
Yeah, thanks, Steven. Always a pleasure and a blast.
Got a blast.
I was just thinking that Jimmy Neutron. Yeah, I forgot to mention that, like, for the longest time, my idea of what the Matrix was that Jimmy Neutron scene where they're filming a movie and they do the, like, you know, the slow motion ducking backwards thing from the Matrix.
That scene in hindsight, you know, I saw that scene when I was a kid, but in hindsight, that scene is just filled with references to like half a dozen movies. It's pretty,
yeah, like that whole episode is. But anyway, that'll do it. And thanks again for listening. And without further delay, have a good day.